So let's continue with government and the economy and what this institution does. So we kind of touched upon this in the first lesson of this chapter, that the government and the economy basically is there to provide some sort of social order. Government has a lot of power. It's able to control its society to a certain extent with the help of religion. That's what we covered in the last class. Now, there are a few keywords that I want to touch upon under the topic of government and the economy. We're going to start with the different types of economy that we can see nowadays. The first type is capitalism, which basically are countries that are focuses on profit generation. So they have a lot of privately owned companies. And then there are economies that are based on socialism, which is basically a lot of state-owned and state-distributed resources. And then thirdly, there are mixed economies, which is the mixture between capitalism and socialism. So partially their society and their economy and their companies are run by the government, and partially it's privately owned that are profit oriented to generate profit. And then the idea of division of labor, in case you see this word on the test, division of labor just means that people nowadays only focus on what they want to specialize in, only focus their energies and efforts into gaining knowledge on what they want to specialize in life, rather than knowing how to do absolutely everything for themselves, because that would be more inefficient, rather than letting people who are good at doing the things that you can't do their stuff, and you hire them to do it for you. So that is what division of labor is. Now, let's talk about the different types of government that you can see around the world nowadays. So you can see democracy. Democracies are basically based on an elected government running the country. Then there are dictatorships. Dictatorships have one leader that is leading and dictating what the country does, how the resources are allocated, how funds are allocated, and things like that. That's a dictatorship. There is monarchy, where the monarch or the king or the queen is the head of the state. However, most countries that have a monarchy nowadays are just monarchy by name and don't actually yield a lot of power. And then there is communism, whereby a group of people are the ones that dictate everything, where resources are allocated, and where the fund goes and things like that. That is communism. Next, we're going to move on to health and medicine. The role of health and medicine is to treat the sick. Now, there's a term that is very popular. It comes up very, very often, medicalization. So medicalization is essentially the idea that there are certain diseases or disorders that if people weren't told by the pharmaceutical company that these are diseases, these are sickness that can actually be treated, or these are conditions that need to be treated, then people would just go on living with them without realizing that it's abnormal or there is a treatment for it, such as in the past, homosexuality was medicalized. Pharmaceutical companies came out and said that this is abnormal. There are treatment for it because pharmaceutical companies have to sell medicines, or sell treatment. That's how they generate profit. So till now, there's a lot more than homosexuality. Of course, now homosexuality is not considered as part of a condition that is treated. It should be treated. But then there are a lot of others that are under debate of whether or not these are simply medicalized to generate profit for treatment, or they are actual conditions that should or requires treatment. So that is medicalization. Now, the sick role. The sick role basically means that if you are sick, you have to assume what we call as the sick role. So you have certain things that you need to know when you're sick that you have to do. First thing in sick role is that you have to know that you have the right to take medical leave from work and nobody can deduct pay. So this is something that people nowadays are very much aware of, but in the past, not so much. And people did not take as many sick leaves as they do now because they realize that their pay will not be deducted. Whereas in the past, people were afraid to take sick leave even when they were sick because they didn't want to lose out on their income. Next is obligation. So once you're sick, once you've taken the day off from work, you have the obligation to get better. You have the obligation to go out there and seek treatment to get better, be it staying home to recover from a minor sickness or minor illness, or if it's a major illness, then you must go to the hospital to get it treated. That's your obligation. And next is you should also know that there can be issues with sick role, such as there are certain conditions that are stigmatized. A lot of people who might not be that well educated about certain sicknesses, they might think that your condition is something that is easily transmissible, such as if you are HIV positive and you tell your colleague that you just found out you're HIV positive, they might not know that, who knows, some people might think that it's airborne or something. So they might not want to socialize with you, and that will create stress and trauma to you. So you have to be aware that there are certain issues that can arise with your sickness, so that you're not shocked by, if you just decide to disclose it or discuss it with your colleagues, you're not shocked by their reaction and you're not confused. So that is issues with sick role. Now, moving on to the tenets of American medical. Oh, okay. Before we move on to the tenets of American medical ethics, there's just one tiny thing that I want to touch upon. Another keyword that I want to introduce to you is the illness experience. The illness experience is simply that once you experience an illness, first step is, of course, you're going to experience the symptoms. So even if you're sick, until and unless you start experiencing symptoms, major symptoms, a lot of people don't acknowledge that they are sick and they will not seek treatment. Some people, even though experiencing symptoms, they still are in denial that they are sick. So until and unless you accept that you are sick, that your symptoms are real, then the illness experience starts. Then you start experiencing the entire illness. So experiencing symptoms is the first step of illness experience. The second step is assuming the sick role. Now you start to assume the sick role. Now you start to follow all the rules of being sick. So the sick role is these three. So once you are, sorry, let me do that a little bit better. Yep. Okay. So once you assume the sick role, then after that, you must seek treatment, seek care, and then you establish a relationship with your healthcare practitioner. What does that mean? So that basically means that they will diagnose you, they'll treat you, and it's not just a one-time treatment. You have to come for follow-ups until you get better. So establish relationship with healthcare practitioner. Okay, I've spelled that wrong. Okay, I'm just gonna write healthcare provider. Make it easy. And then, of course, the last step is the recovery process.